it's like the department yesterday when they were presenting their adjustment budget. So I think even NYDA, they are going to do the same. But if there were outstanding matters when they were presenting their annual, their strategic plan, maybe NYDA. Yeah. It's only the NYD. How is Honorable Mpiti? Is Honorable Mpiti okay?
Yes, Chair, he is okay. He's feeling better. I hope. I spoke to him earlier today and he didn't sound so lacquer. But I'm sure he'll be okay. I'll just keep checking up on him and I'll keep you posted.
Did he went for to the doctor? Did he went for consultation?
He did over the weekend already. So he has been to the doctor.
Yeah, no, he must take care of himself, ne? Yeah.
I'll let him know, Chair.
Yeah. And then our agenda is opening and welcome apologies. Do we have any apologies except in Petey's one?
He did
yes, Chair. I also received an apology from the minister who could not attend due to the cabinet and the NCC meeting that is attending. But she indicated that the deputy minister will attend on behalf of the ministry. Thank you, Chair.
Is the deputy minister present? And welcome apologies.
I haven't seen
any
yet.
Apologies except in Petey's one? Okay, the lady who's dealing with the youth issues in the department, is she here?
Who could not attend.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm around.
They must show your face. I can't see your face. Yeah. How are you? Unmute your mic.
I'm okay, Chairperson, and how are you?
I'm trying. No, I'm happy to see you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and you must play safe, eh? Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, you must. Okay. And then all our members are present.
I haven't seen Chair. Ma'am Kaula, as I said, she'll join the meeting later, but I'm just looking for Honorable Maluleke. I haven't seen her yet.
Staff members?
Kashifa is on sick leave. Tasneem has also got a family responsibility, on family responsibility leave, but Crystal Levendale, she's with us. And Tom Bench, I think she's having problem with connections.
Tasneem, I was called by their manager today. Yeah, and we need to pray for her also. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that she's got serious family problems, but also she has to go for testing also. And then she's awaiting the results. And then we'll see, because what I said to the manager is that they must inform us after the results and tell us how is she, and then we'll take it from there, because if then the results are positive, she can't fly for our interviews. She can't fly to Joburg. So that means she has to go for quarantine for 14 days. So is that one. But also with Christelle, also Christelle was not feeling well. But today I was told that she's going to be part of the meeting today. And I spoke to their manager today in the morning. And we'll try and make some arrangements. Maybe what where the point our first point of departure is to update the NYDA CEO and the CFO together with Dr. Penis, because she's responsible for the youth issues. And yesterday, I was not sure whether you were here, Dr. Penis, or you were not. That we have shortlisted for NYDA, we have shortlisted 30 candidates. And for now, what we've done, we've also submitted the CVs to Human Resource Department for verification of qualifications. But also what we've done, we have sent each candidate a consent form, because if you remember, even in our advert, it was there that all candidates will be subjected to verification of their CVs, will be subjected to verification of qualifications, but also even the screening from state security. So all of those of that, what we have done on Monday, was it Monday, Nelly? So we have sent to them a consent forms that each candidate must fill and bring it back to Parliament, so that Parliament can proceed with the process. If anyone doesn't want us to go through that a process, that means that person will be automatically disqualified, because it's there in our advert that all candidates will be subjected to that screening. So those that, and another form that was sent to them, that they must also go to the nearest police stations for fingerprints, and those fingerprints, it must be original copy. So after taking those fingerprints from police stations, what they need to do is to query those envelopes, those fingerprints directly to Parliament. So the manager of the committee of the committees, Nomvula Jiba, Ms. Nomvula Jiba, will be the one who will be receiving those fingerprints. So I think with that process, the closing date was yesterday, Nelly Sone.
For the HR process, it was yesterday, and then for the fingerprints, it's today, Chair.
Oh, okay.
Because they're posting, yeah.
Okay, and then so we're in that process for now. You see, people don't a CEO. They think maybe it's Molanyana process to deal with, but they don't know that there are many things that we are taking care of, we are looking for when we are dealing with these processes. So that's why we take time, you know, to finalize our things even before interviews. But I think we have a concerned CEO as the committee that there was a something that we saw in social media, something like a petition of some sort. It's having NYDA logo, and it's circulating. It's like those people are trying to mobilize other people who applied, that the process was not free and fair, or it was marginalizing some people. It's like they wrote a lot of things in that thing. And that's why I sent it to you last night, so that you can look at it, and then so that you can clarify as who is it, whether it's coming from NYDA, and if it's coming, you must also investigate where does it come from NYDA, because there's no way that we'll be having a process that you are busy with in Parliament, and there are people in NYDA that are doing other processes, you know, who are instigating citizens or young people to rebel against processes of Parliament, of which those processes that you are running, they're legitimate. And I'm not even sure why are other young people feeling that if they are not shortlisted, then the process is wrong. Where does that mentality come from? Why are other people thinking that they are the best, they are most important than who? They are most important to who?
That is ignorant. Ignorant. That is ignorant, totally ignorant.
You know, and you know, I can't understand why people think if it's not me, that thing is wrong. This is a democratic state, and in a democratic state, everybody is eligible for as long as there is an advert. People are free to apply. There's no what do they say in English? Entitlement. You know, there are people who've got wrong mentality, who thinks that they are entitled to something, and other people, they are not entitled, as if that they are not young people of South Africa. Every young person, for as long as you are a South African, you are free, and you must not be scared to apply because there is a certain group who will intimidate you. We are not intimidated as the subcommittee, and we are going to treat everybody free and fair, because for as long as they meet what we are looking for, everybody will be treated equally. There is no inequality here. And in fact, I trust all those members that are serving in that subcommittee, including members of all our political parties. The process, each and every member that is serving there, it's men and women with integrity who are loyal to serve the people of South Africa. So these things that people are trying to create outside, it's not acceptable at all. Because there's nobody who's busy lobbying or whatever. We are not bought. In fact, no one can even buy us. Even money cannot buy us. Because when we took an oath as honorable members, we said we'll be honorable members indeed. So we are raising this concern to you, a CFO and CEO, that we need you to investigate on who has the right to use your logo without your executive authority, because that person must be subjected to DC. There is no way that people will just take the logo of NYDA and use it as for whatever reasons. It's only authorized individuals that can use the logo of NYDA. It's like even the logo of Parliament. We can't just use a logo of Parliament without following the right procedures of Parliament and rules and regulations. So we want to raise it before you, so that at least you must know that there is that thing that is circulating in the social media, which wants to jeopardize and undermine the processes that we have followed as honorable members. I think with those few remarks, Dr. Penny said, at least even yourself, you had our comment, and we take it that because we are raising it officially in our meeting, that's why Tina will not raise things in corners. We'll raise our things in a proper meeting. As honorable members, we are having a very serious concern, but that's how far we are now with the process. Probably by the end of July or first week of August, we'll be done with your process. Can I get any comment from members? Honorable Sheriff, Honorable Masiko. Honorable Mkweba. Mamshengwa. Neliswa, I don't know whether our the honorable members can hear me when I speak.
Yes. Chairperson. I think you have said all. So your mouth was full. Thank you very much.
Okay, ma. Honorable Sheriff.
Thank you, Chair. I was not part of the process. Uluyolo was. So I can't really give any comments, but your comments are noted, Chairperson.
Okay. Honorable Mkweba. Masiko. Neliswa.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. One is in the rural area, so I'm having challenges with my network. I did hear part of your introductory remarks, and I do share the sentiment, Honorable Chairperson, that there is a certain level of expectation from the young people that regardless of the stringent criteria that we have, they still expect that they would appear in the final list. But I know with the interview that the Honorable co-chairperson had from the NCOP in SAFM, she was able, because I had a number of young people calling through complaining about not really being not being selected in the final list. But I think that she did address it quite well, because some of them had an expectation through the numbers that we don't know where they got it from. When we were calling out numbers, they had a general expectation that they would be appearing, but I was happy in the manner in which the chairperson, the co-chairperson, had addressed the issue. I'm really sorry, Chairperson, my network coverage is quite bad where I am, but I'm trying to find a better space. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay. Mkweba?
You know, Chair, I've missed good afternoon, Chair and honorable members. I have missed your input because I lost a connection. I just came in now. Chair, thanks.
Is Mama Makaula in now? Okay.
Chair, I do have a question, Chairperson. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I want to check on the issue of the consent forms as well as the signing agreements. If we are able to ascertain if all the 30 have received them, have we been able to communicate with them directly? And should they not then bring back those forms in time, what happens? That's the question I would have to the support staff, just to be assisted in terms of have all of the members, the shortlisted candidates received all their forms, and have those that were required to be brought back been brought? Should they not be brought back on time, what happens?
I will allow Neliswa to respond to that. But remember, they must, it's a must, it's not, it's an obligation. They must meet the deadline. They must. Because
okay, can I come in there?
the only delay where we're not going to penalize anybody, it's the couriering, no, because they are not in control of the couriering companies. Ne? They're not in control. But all what it's what we have done, Nelisa was calling each and every individual. But I will hand over to Nelisa to respond on that one.
Thank you, Chair. So far, I've emailed them from Monday as indicated, and we gave them the deadline for Wednesday. But so far, I have received 17 consent form. That keep on emailing them. Some emailed me to say he was staying far. I think it's from Bizana, and he had to travel to the one area to try and email the consent form. But so far, I have received about 17, which we have forwarded, and there's some report, just a provisional report. Maybe Nomvula can assist. She is here, Chair.
Let Nomvula speak.
Okay. Okay, Chairperson, it's Ms. Nomvula on the side. Good afternoon to the committee. According to my records, I've been receiving the SAPS fingerprinting documents, and to date, I have about 17 that were couriered to my house and that are recorded as such, and the deadline for submission is today. And we have also received one email that Nelisa is talking about from a candidate that hails from Bizana that has alerted us of a possible delay because of the apparatus not being available at a specific police station, which I've also noted for the committee to note that there might be a possible delay there, so we might not receive that one today. But we are hoping, Chairperson, with the speed by which all the candidates are responding to this advert, we should be getting most of them by the end of today. With regard to the HR ones, all HR submissions, in my record, I have about 23 candidates who have submitted the consent forms, and we have also received about 6 verifications for qualifications, and HR is continuing with that particular process. And from HR, we have received 2 alerts for 2 possible candidates, which might be delayed in their verification because the service providers alerted them to the 2 candidates. So all in all, Chairperson, between yesterday and today, we should be on par in terms of submissions of the required documents that the subcom is looking for from each candidate. And if not, there should be a reason in which the committee, we think, should look at in case of not meeting the deadline. Thank you very much, Chair. Chairperson, I'm done.
Okay, sorry, honorable members. One of my son is traveling, so is stuck in between. So now he's busy calling me, he's disturbing me in the meeting. So that's the report, Honorable Masiko. Is there any follow-up question?
No, Chairperson, there's no follow-up. Yeah, I'm sorted.
Okay, thank you very much. I see the acting DG, Dr. Annette is here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chair.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, acting DG.
Yes, I'm here, Honourable Chair.
Yeah, I welcome you.
Where's Chair?
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Okay, you are done. We can move to item for the CEO to make a presentation and maybe respond if they want to respond.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings, Dumelang, to all you as the Chairperson, all the honourable members, and the Director General of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. I hope that in these challenging times, everybody is staying safe and staying well. And anybody who may have contracted COVID-19, we wish them a speedy recovery. Chairperson, I'll start where you requested me to provide feedback. So I think it's important to say that as NYDA, we respect the committee's process, that the appointment of the board is the prerogative of Parliament and then the presidency, and that any involvement of NYDA or its employees in such a process would be construed to be a conflict of interest. So I'd like to give the committee confidence to say that we have communicated to staff and management to say that this is not our process and that it should be left to the relevant structures of government to be able to deal with it. In terms of the usage of the logo, this, Chairperson, would have also happened during the time where the committee would have asked for public comments on the candidates. And many candidates would have downloaded the NYDA logo and they would have created sort of campaign type posters that they would have circulated on social media requesting support for their names. And I think this matter was addressed in the portfolio committee where NYDA was present. When you had sent me that message last night, I did refer the matter to our legal department, and they will provide us with an opinion on what way forward we can pursue when people who are not necessarily associated with the NYDA take usage of the NYDA's logo and use it for their own purposes and to pursue their own agendas. As soon as legal has provided me with that opinion, Chairperson, I will share it with you and with the committee through email. Chair, I'd then like to go to the presentation of the NYDA for today. Okay, so this presentation is done for the committee post the special adjustment budget or the supplementary emergency budget, which was tabled by the Minister of Finance about 2 weeks ago, and the steps that have been taken by the NYDA since that adjustment budget was tabled in order for us to be responsive.
When do you want to meeting?
Chair, through the communication we received from the committee, we'll take the committee through the implications of COVID-19 on the mandate of NYDA. We will indicate the emergency budget implications on the overall implications for the NYDA. We will look at these budget implications and their impact on our service delivery targets. And we will look at the implications on the recommendations made during the budget vote. And we'll also use that opportunity to address any outstanding matters between ourselves and the committee. And then lastly, we can take any questions on the presentation. So I think to say, Chair, COVID-19 is changing life as we know it. And although it has forced changes to many of our plans as an organization, it has not changed our commitment to put young people to work. Just to take you through some of the implications. So a big part of the NYDA business model is focused on face-to-face training with young people, generally in groups of about 25 young people. Although we have been able to shift to online learning, we know that the costs of data remain very high in South Africa, and many young people still prefer to attend face-to-face training. We've thus reduced our training groups to 10 young people at a time in order for us to maintain strict social distancing criteria. During the period of the lockdown, we also had to pivot our youth entrepreneurship model. So whereas generally we are very focused on providing new funding for startup businesses, during the lockdown, we had to really focus on providing relief for youth businesses which were in distress. Equally, we've had to step up and provide support to young people to assist them in claiming UIF if they're not sure how to do so, and to assist them in claiming the special COVID-19 relief grant from the Department of Social Development. Internally, our high-risk employees, those who are living with comorbidities or those who may be pregnant, they continue to work from home. And at head office and all of our branches, we implement a rotational work schedule, which means we operate at 50% capacity with the other 50% working from home. Each time a COVID-19 case is identified, our offices need to observe a mandatory closure period with sanitization. Thus far, in total, we know 6 cases of NYDA employees who have tested positive for COVID-19. 5 were at our Umtata branch and 1 was at our head office. Excuse me. Our outreach model has also been affected because no large gatherings are permitted. Our employees do continue to have tools of trade to work from home and communicate with young people. We continue to be available online, if not in person, to our young people. And our website is 0 rated and our call center is toll-free. Chairperson, I must thank the department. They have allocated us a seat on the economic stream of NatJoints, and therefore through that structure we are able to support and push for initiatives which are linked to youth development. Now that we are back on level 3, we've reinitiated the campaign to fund 1,000 businesses in 100 days. And with our partners, the Department of Small Business and the Presidency, we will complete that project on the 12th of August 2020. Our main mechanism to respond to COVID-19 has been the Youth Micro Enterprise Relief Fund. We've put in 10 million Rand of capital by the NYDA. We've been grateful to have support from 2 million Rand from each of the Mpumalanga provincial governments and the KwaZulu-Natal provincial government. We did not receive any additional support from National Treasury. The grant is a maximum of 10,000 Rand to be able to subsidize a young person's business's losses during the lockdown. If we cannot help a business, we still do refer them to other funds, being the SMME funds, Skuma Fund, Tourism, Spaza Relief Fund, and the Agriculture Fund. In total, we've received about 8,500 applications. We've approved about 853, and that equates to about 7.2 million Rand in funding. Just to give an example of the types of businesses that we funded, this was an article which was featured in the Sowetan last week. It's the Tosh, a coffee shop which is in Klerksdorp. They received 10,000 Rand 3 weeks after filing their application with the NYDA. The funding has helped them stay afloat until restaurants were given the go-ahead to reopen. They used the 10,000 Rand to pay a portion of their salaries, their chef and their waitresses, as well as pay their rent and electricity. It's also important that I give honourable members feedback on different programs of government which are being rolled out specifically with the purpose of providing youth the ability to have work and to do service during the COVID-19 period. So for example, we have the Department of Public Works, which is engaging about 20,000 volunteers in 9 provinces, and they're receiving a stipend of about 1,100. They're doing screening in schools and government buildings. They're doing data capturing, and they're doing queue marshalling and public awareness. The NARISEC program is also shifting as a result of COVID-19. They have engaged 1,000 volunteers 5 days a week at a stipend of about 2,400 a month to assist with monitoring the agriculture and land reform recipients of COVID-19 support, as well as doing public awareness to attract young people into agriculture. The Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, working with the NYDA, is scaling up the Young Patriots program to 1,000 young people, taking in 700 more participants than the previous financial year. The Department of Basic Education has been rolling out Youth Brigades project. To date, it's been done in the Gauteng Department of Education, the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, and Free State. I've put the numbers as well as the budgets for those programs. And these young people are mainly deployed in public schools and are paid a stipend to assist with screening, with data capturing, as well as monitoring compliance to social distancing and sanitizing. In the Northwest, the Department of Health is also recruiting young volunteers to assist in the fight against COVID-19 in communities. They've engaged about 1,000 young people. The Free State Department of Sports, Arts and Culture is also running programs to encourage people to live a healthy lifestyle and do awareness campaigns during the period of COVID-19. The city of Tshwane is also engaging volunteers to promote food security, and there are multiple partnerships with civil society organizations who are partnering up with government, mainly for protecting food security in vulnerable communities. So there are many initiatives where young people are being provided with service opportunities where they can earn a wage, learn a skill, and provide service to their communities. Chair, what do we hear from young people during the period of COVID-19? So one of the main things that comes about is that access to data is one of the most significant barriers to equality before and during the lockdown. South Africa continues to have some of the highest data costs on the continent. When we talk to young people, they tell us that because of limited cash, they opt to buy smaller data bundles more often, even if the price is higher than a bulk data bundle purchase. On average, young people say they have to spend 360 Rand a month on data, with some up to about 1,800 Rand for job searching, online applications, social media, research, and academic work. My previous slide showed the stipends that young people earn. So one can see that young people are spending up to 20% of their income often just on the cost of data. 63% of young people do not have a consistent income, and many youth are using the childcare grant to support themselves. Young people are eager to learn, but data barriers are significant. Young people need to stay busy and employable, but they are struggling to make ends meet. If we lower or even remove data costs, young people are more readily able to access information, seek learning and job opportunities, and engage with others. We have seen that where we change our sites to become data-free, young people's online behavior changes from logging in after midnight when data is cheaper to even more traffic during the day. Affordable data allows young people to be productive during daytime hours, giving them additional psychological benefits, as well as giving them access to online communities amid social distancing. We have to continue to lift up our youth voices to ensure resilience and recovery, and to provide young people with opportunities to build their skills and stay positive. If we amplify the voices of young people, they will help to lead us out of this crisis. We know that the Department of Communications through ICASA has started the process of the release of spectrum and is accelerating that process, and that we expect to help us bring data costs down in the medium term. However, it is more necessary than ever that we start providing more free Wi-Fi, more mechanisms designed to give young people access so that they can be more connected. We also know that the formal sector, while being a critical engine for productivity and growth, can't provide all of the solutions to the growing numbers of the unemployed. It will be critical to keep the formal sector afloat, but it will also be important to innovate on ideas to support and sustain the informal sector. Our research shows that of the roughly 1.8 million informal small and medium enterprises, less than 1/3 are led by youth, and more than 1/3 are headed by women. The most common informal sector occupations for young men are taxi drivers and motor vehicle mechanics, and for young women, beauticians and street food vendors. Supporting these young men and women will help us drive a much more inclusive economy. And with these livelihood strategies, without these livelihood strategies, the poverty gap can grow and inequality can increase. We also know that the suspension of the skills development levy for 4 months has also affected many young people who rely on the SDL for their internship and learnership programs. The conservative estimates tell us that COVID-19 will strip between 1 to 2 million jobs in the economy. We need swift and imaginative solutions to assist the economy not only to recover, but to rebuild towards being more inclusive and being more resilient in the future. Chairperson, when we would have presented earlier in the year, we also would have indicated the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, which will focus on 5 priority interventions over the next 5 years. I'm not going to go over the 5 interventions over the next 5 years, but I thought it important to reflect on the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention in light of COVID-19. So the Minister of Finance in the supplementary budget did flag the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention for funding over the medium-term expenditure framework. In particular, large scaled-up public employment and paid youth service opportunities has been identified as a mechanism in which we can put our young people to work immediately. Together, we are working with National Treasury to finalize interventions for funding in this financial year, as well as over the medium-term expenditure framework to carry out the commitments in the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. Once that funding is confirmed, Chairperson, I will communicate with the committee what is the targets that have been set by the presidency to achieve the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention in this year and future financial years. While we have acknowledged, or while we do acknowledge that the economy needs faster growth and the education system needs improvements, which are more structural changes, the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention acknowledges that young people cannot be expected to wait for these systematic changes and that they need a plan now in order to solve the unemployment crisis in this generation. Chairperson, I want to hand over to the Chief Financial Officer just to take you through the revised budget implications and its impact on the overall allocations to the NYDA.
Thank you, CEO, and greetings to the chairperson again and the honorable members. If we look at the numbers now, the allocation that we had received from Treasury was 478,700,000. Now, with an interest income of 9,002,000, as well as donor funded income that we had budgeted, these are funds that we probably generate ourselves within the entity. So the budget that I had presented, I think at the last presentation that we did to the portfolio was the 545,002,000. Now, with the adjustment, so when we received the revised letter, we did receive a cut of about 97 million rands from the grant. And then obviously once you cut down on what you're going to receive and how you're going to utilize it, your interest income potential also gets adjusted because obviously you're going to be holding less cash during the period. And then donor funded income, we reduced it by 11 million. That's just because we had to go back and assess the risk around all the donor funds that we have. And I think we have one, the UIF, and I will actually show on the next slide. UIF, we felt that we're not going to receive those funds since UIF in the current economic climate, they are also battling to even actually take care of the other applications. And obviously the funding for UIF as well was more for training of a certain number of people, which is something that we're not going to be doing physically, and we're going to be actually doing this via virtual networks. The next slide, sorry, let me just try and control this. I'll just put in my one so that I can be able to control. It's this one. Sorry, Chairperson, I'm just trying to put in the slides so that I can be able to run through. And this is the one. Yes. On the actual expenditure, so that was the revenue. So on the actual expenditure, we presented also a budget by program, and obviously now to slice the cake in terms of saying how do we then deal with the 114 million rand reduction in our budget. If you notice, Chairperson, economic participation, we're going from 99 million to 91 million. So the cut is about 8.4 million. Obviously, we are saying we can't, even when we know we are being cut so much, we try and make sure that we do not impact the service delivery channels per se. So you will see as I go along that the big cuts are actually sitting under administration and employee costs. And that's where we've actually gone and said we're going to actually reduce. So on the jobs, which is program number 2, there's a 16 million rand cut there. And obviously, we are looking at the fact that of the jobs jobs preparedness programs, which were training programs. We're going to be cutting a lot in there because obviously we're not going to be having a lot of interactions with young people in terms of jobs, other than using virtual platforms. The NYS, National Youth Service Program, the cut is about 28 million. The adjustment is 28 million. The 28 million for the national youth is actually affected by the 11 million of the UIF, because obviously the UIF was there to actually assist with the National Youth Service program. So it looks high at 28, but if you take out the 11 million, it actually quite reduced the effect of the adjustment. Universal access to opportunities, there's 11 million rand cut. Obviously on universal access, that's where we've been actually trying to expand our operations, trying to actually get more service centers so that the entity can be present in the whole country, especially the rural areas. There as well, we've cut about 11 million of the 49 million rand budget that we actually had. Research and policy, there's a 2 million rand cut there. And obviously we can't just cut everything, because obviously there are some standing, items and activities that we need to also continue to have, and for the entity to actually operate and have a year where we can classify that under COVID pandemic circumstances, we still were able to achieve certain targets. And then administration, as you can see, there's a 32 million rand cut on administration. So we've looked at certain activities, for example, travel. We've cut close to about 80% of our travel has been cut, because obviously at the moment we don't know when we're going to move from level 3 to even level 2 or level 1. And obviously we've also put out communication that only on emergencies can we have travel. At the moment, I think we have not even spent on travel in the past 2 months, because we've said people must only travel when there's a serious need, and at the moment we have not identified such need. And then employee costs, 15 million rand cut on employee costs. So we've actually just mentioned that on the employee costs, we've cut out the salary increases of all management for the next financial year. As well as looking at some of the bonuses that we normally used to pay, but also in whatever we said we were gonna actually put additional people, we've also put that away. So obviously we are doing a mini salary freeze, if you have to call it like that. That actually shows how the 114 is split to the 431. And then on the donor funds, as I had mentioned, you will notice that the donor funds have also reduced to the 43.3 million, and their main reduction is UIF. So obviously they're not going to give us the 17 million, but they've promised that we can still have about 3 million rands for the NYS Artisan program. And then there's an allocation across government. I think CEO will then take over and run with the rest of the tables. Thanks, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, CFO. So, Chair, I just wanted to give an indication of
Okay. CEO.
Chairperson.
What is the problem?
Nothing. Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Yes.
Okay. I'll continue.
Okay.
If you look at DHET, they receive an allocation of about 107 billion, which supports about 4 million young people. But the young people who are most vulnerable, those 8 million young people who are not in employment, education or training, we locate their budget, it's about 400 million rand only. So they receive the smallest share of the budget. And that is really one area we need to address. And to an extent, we do welcome the Minister of Finance commitment to zero-based budgeting, because budgeting must follow policies of the country, and if the policy of the country is to target those who are not in employment, education, or training, we need to increase their budget. And this is not a pitch for more budget for the NYDA. We do not have a problem where the budget lies, as long as it benefits these 8 million young people who are not in employment, education, or training, because they are the most marginalized.
Yeah.
Chair, in terms of the revisions to our APP, in the previous presentation, we would have indicated how we go about preparing our APP using multiple sources of information, linking to best practice locally and internationally, using the NYDA Act as a guide, consulting with young people, aligning targets based on gender, and a target for the disability community, avoiding duplication with what other government departments are doing, identifying key partners, and then, of course, now adjusting based on the emergency budget. We've still maintained 5 programs, being economic development through youth entrepreneurship, decent employment through the jobs program, social cohesion and pathway for economic emancipation through the coordination of youth service, universal access for vulnerable youth, and research work to inform policy development for young people. On Program 1, administration, our value of funds sourced from the public and private sector is now 60 million rand. We've indicated that the number of CETA partnerships that we want to establish are 4 CETA partnerships. The number of partnerships with technology companies remains at 2 partnerships. And then in the human resources space, we will continue to implement an annual workplace skills plan. On the finance side, we will produce 4 quarterly NYDA management reports, which will ensure that we are maintaining good governance, financial performance, and performance management in all of our divisions. We will review and implement our ICT strategic plan. We will review and implement our integrated communication and marketing strategy plan. We will review our supply chain management annual plan and produce quarterly reports. We will produce and approve and monitor our NYDA strategic risk register, and will produce an annual report on partnerships established with disability organizations. Chairperson, heeding the advice from the Portfolio Committee in the last meeting, we've added a considerable amount of targets to Program 1 administration to ensure that administration covers all of the administrative programs of the NYDA. On Program 2, which is Program Design and Delivery, we've increased the number of youth-owned enterprises supported with financial interventions. That is because we redirected budget towards the Youth Enterprise Micro Relief Fund. We've maintained the target on youth supported with business consultancy services. And then we've maintained the target for jobs created and sustained through supporting entrepreneurs and enterprises. We have had to adjust the targets for youth supported through non-financial business development support and young people capacitated with skills to enter the job market and skills to participate in the economy, mainly because those targets require strict social distancing and we are unable to accommodate large training groups as we did before. On the National Youth Service Program, we'll continue to implement the NYS communications and marketing strategy. We'll continue to register youth service projects. We'll continue to implement partnerships which are coordinated to deliver on NYS programs. Based on the discussions that we've been having with National Treasury and the Presidency, it is very likely that we will both design a presidential youth service as well as welcome our first intake of a presidential youth service of a substantial amount of young people towards the end of this year. We also intend to design a higher education youth service program in collaboration with the Department of Higher Education and Training and the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. We'll continue to conduct our customer surveys. We'll continue to perform impact program evaluations, although we have had to reduce the budget. So therefore, we've reduced the number of program evaluations that we can do in this financial year. We'll produce the annual report on government-wide priorities for young people, and we will continue to produce quarterly youth status outlook reports. In terms of the impact of the budget on the budget vote recommendations and some of the key issues that the committee was outstanding our answers to the committee. In terms of filling of vacancies on human resources, only extremely critical vacancies can be filled. However, if we do receive additional funding through the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, we may be able to fill more vacancies within NYDA. The Honorable Maseko asked us in the last meeting whether NYDA had submitted any proposals for the economic stimulus package. We have done so. We have made submissions to National Treasury to support an additional 2,000 businesses on top of the initial 1,000 businesses in 100 days. We have submitted a proposal to support young creatives through a campaign. We know that the creative sector, in particular young people, are heavily affected by COVID-19 and the lockdown. We also put a proposal forward for a National Youth Service Challenge, which would empower young people to be activists for change in their communities. And all three of these projects come up to a total value of about 260 million, for which we are waiting feedback from Treasury. In terms of young people with disabilities, we have now allocated a specific target on the APP for supporting the disability community. All of our initiatives and the Presidential Youth Employment Initiatives will have a gender target and a disability target. In terms of providing support to child-headed households, we are continuing to work with the Department of Social Development to support vulnerable youth households when we identify or become notified of them. In terms of working with industry bodies, we work with industry bodies across sectors to maximize impact of our organization and also to collaborate as far as possible. One of the things that will also be taken through the department and the presidency is the Presidential Working Group on Youth, and that will also ensure that each sector has representation to communicate their views on youth development. In terms of collaboration with our parent department, our shareholders compact has been signed, and we collaborate and continue to work closely with the youth desk and the DG's office in the department on an ongoing basis. Chairperson, that is NYDA's presentation. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today. I will stop there for now.
CEO. Honorable members. Can you hear me?
Yes, Chair, we can hear
Yes,
you.
Chair.
What I was saying is that the NYDA report, it has improved a lot. And I can see that you have captured most of the things that we ask you and we advise you to do this time. You have tried your level best. The only thing that I was worried of is I'm looking at your budget adjustment that you have done in your table here. I'm looking at jobs program 2, 16 million. It's a lot, you know. And I don't know whether even yourselves, you were comfortable when you were taking such, you were taking such a big amount in jobs, as CFO and CEO, because we are faced with high rate of unemployment. And when I look at this amount, especially now, because you see, we are going to be faced with many young people being out of work due to other companies that were affected by COVID-19. So I think this is too much. But also with regards to research, you have reduced it with 2 million. You were the ones who were reprioritizing, ne? CEO and
Yes,
CFO.
Chair. Yes, Chair. We get the overall cut from Treasury and then we must distribute it amongst our divisions.
So this is how you felt maybe it's you're gonna take in these two in all the programs I can see, but I think maybe you with the one of jobs maybe you shouldn't have done too much. 16 million is a lot. But also with research, you have taken 2 million program 4. And even that one also, because now you see, we will need more young people who will do research for you to be able to deal with the issues that are affecting young people in terms of creativity and innovation. And yeah, it's a very big challenge. Eh? But maybe you can share with us what was the thing you're thinking with these two, né? Especially these two, because they affect directly on things that will benefit young people. Can you share with us before I call on honorable members?
Yes, thanks, Chairperson. I think if I have to try and respond, so obviously the overall cut that we received from Treasury was about 20%, if we have to put it in a percentage. Now, for an entity like ours, a 20% cut is quite a lot to actually receive as a cut. So what we had to then do is we then sat and looked at the actual activities. So obviously, just giving you an example around the jobs program. The jobs program, for example, involves certain initiatives and programs that relate to creating jobs for young people. And then there's also the job preparedness programs, whereby we prepare young people so that when job opportunities actually come, then you are able to then match them to those needs in terms of like trying to teach them to do a CV, how they present themselves. So obviously those types of initiatives previously would require that it's actually in a training setup where you have actually, about 100 to 150 young people in one room. And then obviously the venue costs, the accommodation for the trainers who actually have to move back and forth. So those are the types of costs that we've looked into under jobs and said, these are the costs that we're not gonna be able to actually spend on anyway under lockdown level 3. Oh, so okay. Obviously then those are the costs that we've cut, not that we've just gone and took an ad hoc amount and just allocated it to jobs. As I mentioned initially, the big interest has been to make sure that we do not affect service delivery channels. And then we go and actually look at what activities within a service delivery channel that we can see that is not going to happen based on the limitations of movement of people and actually also hosting the number of people. So on the jobs program, it looks high, Chairperson, but it's actually just the activities where we were actually hosting like job expos, we were hosting training of all of those. Research, as I said, on all the divisions, we've had to also look into how much we can cut. Research is very important for us to sustain ourselves going forward and obviously coming up with innovation, as you've mentioned, Chairperson. But obviously, we actually had to look at certain of the conferences that they normally would also hold the research unit in terms of either looking and reviewing the youth policy or any other activity there, because there's a lot of consultation that gets done under research. So we also looked at saying, but these consultations where you actually would have so many people are not gonna happen in the next 9 months of this financial year. So obviously the cuts are very much focused on the travel and the conference facilities, because we are using the virtual platforms to try and actually still get the consultations that we are looking for. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Because I was also thinking of maybe let me say first, yesterday when we were having the department, the issue of national youth policy, we have requested the department that they need to republish it and also come up with a new date for a closing date of it. Remember, the closing date was the 30th of April, but there was then lockdown. Where we were still at level 5 and level 4. I'm sure it was level 5, I think, and young people did not get enough opportunity to participate, to engage on that bill. You remember. So what we have requested to the department to do is to republish it and extend, put a new closing date so that young people can engage on that national youth policy. So that we must not reduce an opportunity and the right of young people to make their own inputs in that national youth policy. So, and young people were raising it with us. And so even yourself, I think yourselves, you need to take that into consideration. Yeah, no, I think with the explanation that you gave me, us now, I'm sure at least it makes sense to me. But I will then allow honorable members to engage on your report. Honorable Sheriff, Honorable Masiko, Honorable Mkweba, Honorable Masondo, Mamhlengwa, Mamsonti, and Ngobo, Babu Ngobo. And I think in that order, ne?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. It's so nice to see you in a second day in a row. We blessed. Thank you to the NYDA for their presentation. And I can understand how tough it must be with a 20% cut off the budget. But we hope that you are able to use the money left over as sparingly as possible. So, CEO, you spoke about some of the immediate job interventions that can be implemented as soon as possible. I just want to know, what are some of these? So what do they look like in reality and on the ground? And by immediately, how soon will these jobs be created and then implemented for young people to get work? Chairperson, I want to find out, and I'm happy that targets will be desegregated by gender and those who are part of the disability community. Because oftentimes you find that young women stay in abusive relationships or they stay at abusive households because there's a financial burden where if they leave, they might not be able to afford a roof over their head or food for themselves and perhaps their kids. So I wanted to find out, what are some of the job opportunities and skills training that we are focusing directly for young women to lift this financial burden that they find themselves in? Chairperson, interventions for rural youth is going to be very important, not only looking at challenges with data. That's one challenge on its own, but the actual infrastructure for telecommunication and connectivity is another problem. And I tell you this because I struggle to have Zoom meetings in my constituency, and not necessarily because they don't have data, but because there's no connectivity. So there's no towers, there's no infrastructure that might be able to ping the 4G connection or how you call it. I then want to find out about the NYDA's COVID-19 safety plan. Do they have one put together? And what does this mean for communication and education around COVID-19 and the precautions that young people need to take? When this virus first came up, a lot of the people were speaking about how it doesn't necessarily affect young people as bad, but research has now shown that it does indeed affect young people just as much as it does any other age group. So what exactly has the NYDA been doing to specifically target young people in order to keep them safe? If you see in the United States, a lot of young people are going out to festivals and hanging out together and spreading this disease. Now with research showing that perhaps this virus is airborne and can be confined into closed spaces might be a concern that the NYDA should look at and do more perhaps information around it. Chairperson, the last time we spoke to the NYDA, I asked about mental health facilities for young people. I would just like to get an update on that and what the NYDA is doing to increase access to mental health practitioners and facilities. Chair, I want to know what the NYDA plan to do on addressing rape culture and abuse in schools, specifically in high schools. There is a huge issue when it comes to rape culture, and too many times we see these abuses going under the table and the SGBs not necessarily dealing with them. And Chair, if you remember, I spoke about this in the GBV debate we had last week about where patriarchy in fact stems from schools and that it's normalized in schools. And so what will the NYDA look at something and then come back to us, or what would it look like? Chairperson, the CFO spoke about a mini salary freeze. This is a little bit concerning because I feel for staff members who might not get a salary or a percentage of salary for themselves. And I just want to note my concern that a lot of these staff members have children that they might have to look after, they might have to pay rent to put over their heads. So I just want to find out what the CFO means by a mini salary freeze and what it exactly means on the ground. I want to then urge the NYDA to increase partnerships with the technology sector. Currently, they have their target on 2 stakeholders. And I think it's important because young people need to be skilled in stuff like coding, ITC, and even future skills that we don't even know about that relate to the 4th Industrial Revolution. If coronavirus has taught us anything, Chairperson, it's that technology is indeed the future to enable for work to happen. And so I just want to find out and encourage the NYDA to look at broadening their stakeholders. And then my last one, Chair, and this this might be a little bit controversial, but I'm actually really interested to find out if the NYDA has done any research on what the hemp industry and the cannabis industry might have on creating jobs in South Africa for young people. If you look throughout the world, the hemp and cannabis.
The one that use cannabinoids.
Yes, Chairperson. So hemp is a material that is made from the cannabis plant. And you can actually make bricks to build houses. You can make clothing. You can make almost anything with hemp. And there's a huge market for farming of hemp. And so jobs were created through farming, through manufacturing, through distribution, through marketing and communication. So there's a whole huge industry that I think we haven't even tapped into when it comes to creating new jobs for young people. So I just want to find out what the NYDA have they done any research? Have they given it any thought? And perhaps maybe now they can look at it and give it some thought. Chairperson, when we speak about cannabis, people often say, oh, you mean smoking Zol, but also when people Zol, Chairperson, cannabis has a much bigger range than just recreational use. And there is a huge employment and economic benefits to cannabis and the hemp industry that we need to start thinking innovatively about. We don't have jobs in this country, Chairperson. Young people, there are some young people who might not work in their lives. So we need to start thinking of new ways to get them involved in the economy. I thank you, Chairperson.
In fact, when we are talking about that cannabinoids, cannabis, I was part of passing that bill in Parliament in the last term. So I know exactly all those things that you are raising. So what we should have said today to them is that maybe let's propose that maybe this is one of the projects, that they can look at, because it can create many jobs for young people. Yeah, but that, rather than saying, asking them whether they've done it, let's propose as the portfolio committee that this is one of the projects that we think, and we are confidently that it can create jobs, but also even assist young people to get to apply for the license to farm on that thing, because I was part of passing that bill, and I even debated that bill in Parliament. So when you're talking about not for smoking only, I know exactly. Remember my profession, I'm coming from that side. So I was even saying, no, it doesn't cure cancer. It manages. When people were saying, no, it cures cancer, I said, no, it doesn't. It manages pain, because sometimes you're high. When when you smoke it, you become high. And then so it was just a presentation of facts that it doesn't cure a cancer at that time, when in the last Parliament. But I think this should be one of the good projects that NYDA can look at and partner with the Department of Agriculture and Department of Health, because Department of Health, I think, through their council, there's a body that is looking at the applications for licenses, and then a Department of Agriculture, because they are responsible assisting young people to acquire land, to get land, and also fund it. And in fact, we must look at Eastern Cape, I think, and KZN. Those were the two provinces that their soil is the right one, is fertile, it's the right one for them to plant it. So I think this is one of the projects. Even Masiko and Mamhlengo can agree with me that their provinces, and Honorable Mkweba, you can agree with me, Eastern Cape there. So I think that's a very good proposal, Honorable Sheriff. Thank you very much. Honorable Masiko.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Greetings once again to yourself and the members and the participants in the meeting. Chair, let me start on this point, though I know that it was not one of the points that I was going to speak on, but I think I'm really touched by the fact that we want young people to be at the center of any upcoming development and any economic benefit that this industry will be deriving. We know that this is one sector that the pharmaceuticals like to monopolize, Chairperson. And we know that as much as they monopolize it, it is monopolized according to age as well as race. So I think we need to be proactive in ensuring that our young people are benefiting from all the financial benefits that this sector will be deriving. And true to your words, Honorable Chairperson, we must bring the Department of Agriculture on board, as well as the Department of Health on the side of addressing the medicinal benefits of this herb. We know, Chairperson, time immemorial, especially in the Eastern Cape, this industry illegally has raised a number of kids, taken them to universities, fed families, and all of that. So now that it's legal to a certain extent, we must be able to be at the forefront to advocate for the benefit of young people in the correct use, though, because we know that there's another incorrect aspect of it that we should always discourage. Chairperson, I want to really echo your words in terms of the presentation. I think it's precise and to the point, and it has captured well all the issues that we have raised, not even now, but previously as a portfolio committee. In terms of the responses to COVID-19, and I think it's on slide 3, For me, I'm a bit confused because the CEO is making reference to the fact that in terms of the training programs, well, understandably so, that we are now on lockdown level 3, and we still have to follow regulations in terms of contacts or face-to-face contacts. The training has shifted to be an online training. But somewhere down the sentence, he then says that young people are preferring to do a face-to-face contact. So now I need face-to-face training. I need clarity on whether we are doing online only in terms of training, or we are doing face-to-face and we have reduced the numbers to smaller groups of 10 as the presentation had indicated, or we are doing both. That's one. On the second follow-up question in terms of this training, I want to check, Honorable Chairperson, they're making well, they're saying that the cost to data remains high. So now I want to check in terms of the online training, who bears the costs of online training? Is it the young person who has applied for the training, or to a certain extent, NYDA meets the young person halfway, or covers the entire data cost for the training? And I fully agree in terms of the youth voices that it's the cutting of data should be a continuous campaign that we all collectively run with in terms of the provision of affordable data for young people to be able to participate in all the platforms that are online, because now we are speaking about the fourth industrial revolution, and young people must have access to the gadgets, and they must be able to even get access to internet, but at an affordable cost. Data in South Africa remains high, and it must not be a campaign that is only run by different sectors of society. We must all hold hands and fight for the cost of data to be affordable, and it must fall. In terms of the workforce, Honorable Chairperson, the report tells us that we are operating at a 50% workforce in our offices, from I think head office down to local office. So I want to check in terms of the pool of services that are provided at a local office. Is it all the services, or we've cut down and there are other services that we are providing, and there are others that we are not, in terms of the 50% workforce that we're having in our offices? For instance, I just want to check, are the offices at a local level open, and are they accessible to young people? So a person who wants to go and make an application now and feels that they can't go online, will they be able to be serviced and receive a service, a full service in the local offices when they go to the offices? We know that offices like SASSA are running, but like Home Affairs is not running to full capacity. So we need to hear which are the pool of services that are being provided by this 50% workforce. The 100% businesses in 100 days, we really, I think, must applaud the fact that it's noted here that by the 12th of August, we should have completed. But what one would like to get a sense of, where are we in terms of the 1,000 businesses? What is the number that we're currently sitting at? Well, we know the challenges that COVID-19 has brought along in terms of limiting the progression of this program. The last one, Chairperson, is in terms of the administration. And we have said the fact that in terms of the number of SETA partnerships to be established, we are cutting from 8 and we are revising it to 4. I want to get a sense from the CEO on whether the establishment of partnerships, does it have any financial implications for us to necessitate that we cut the partnership from 8 to 4? Because seated from where I am, if we're establishing a partnership with SETA, any form of SETAs, we had projected that we'll form 8 SETA partnerships. But because of COVID-19, we're now, and the budgetary cuts, we are moving to 4. I don't see any financial implications in terms of forming of partnerships with the sitters, but the CEO will clarify us on that. It also speaks to the issue of the number of young people capacitated with skills to enter the job market. We're cutting from 15,000 to 5,000, but we're saying that we're moving to online, which would also be able to give us a bigger number of participants who don't really need to travel we are cutting the cost of the trainers being accommodated and young people traveling, which means that they can invest more on data, and we can be able to facilitate the online trainings. Because for me, these job market training programs are, they are not technical. They are soft skills that can be provided in an online platform. So I don't think that maybe, cutting from 15,000 to 5,000 would really, necessitate such a big cut. And lastly, Chairperson, I think we must commend the inclusion of young people with disabilities. We as a portfolio committee, we really commend that, and we encourage the NYDA never to move their eyes from young people with disabilities. In terms of COVID-19, Chairperson, we do in the near future anticipate that it's going to come to an end. Do we, or have we started on, as the NYDA, on working on a plan that speaks to COVID-19 and beyond COVID-19? How do we pick up and move forward? Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Masiko. I think I want to go back to that one. You did touch on it, the issue of connectivity and data. Maybe also a CEO and CFO, if you can share with us whether you have met with the Department of Telecommunications to discuss this issue of infrastructure, especially in the rural connectivity infrastructure in the rural areas. Because many young people were raising this issue, and even us as the portfolio committee, we were very much concerned, because you remember, most of them who are in the universities, they were having difficulty with regards to connection to do their work at home. And also the issue of data, though universities have tried their level best to provide students with the data, but maybe when you are responding, you can also speak to this one and just go into detail, so that we can know that even yourselves, you are dealing with it, so that young people must not say NYDA is not attending to our needs, especially for going to fourth industrial revolution. The young people who are staying in the rural areas, they must also, taken on board and be considered, and so that they are not left behind. Okay, Honorable Mamhlengwa.
Thank you, Chairperson. First of all, let me welcome the presentation from the CEO, from the group of NYDA. The presentation opened our minded. Thank you for that. Chairperson, let me have a clarity on the training or capacitation of the young people, so that they will be contribute or innovate the community or the young ones in their small communities. Secondly, Chairperson, while we are talking about agriculture, because there is a project called HAND who train the young ones, but the Department of Agriculture is not a part. Let me have something clarity from the NYDA, the know-how of that project, because they have capacitated the young ones here in Etulundi about how the farming, the project is HAND. I want them to give us clarity or investigate more about that project. Lastly, NYDA, what is your role in terms of graduated young people? Because there are many graduates in our in the community. What is the NYDA assisting those people to be employed? I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Babu Ngobo. Honorable Ngobo. Babu Ngobo. Honorable Masondo.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay.
And thank you. Chairperson?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the NYDA for the presentation. I have a question and a comment, and the CEO indicated that the NYDA has been allocated a seat on the economic work stream of Net Joins to support initiatives for youth development. So what I would like to know is what initiatives, if any, has the NYDA initiated and supported so far on this economic work stream? And my comment, I would also like to welcome the new target that has been added on the APP, which deals with young persons with disabilities. I really think that this is a step in the right direction because young persons with disabilities today still find it very difficult to find employment. Even when you're looking at for instance, the research brief that was done by the South African Human Rights on Disability and Equality in South Africa, between 2013 and 2017, it was estimated that 8 in 10 persons with disabilities are without a job. So this is a huge number. So I really do believe that this initiative will go a long way in uplifting young persons with disabilities and making sure that they get employment even in the public sector. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, and with our board, they'll be there. With the NYDA, they'll be there. Thank you very much, Babu Ngobo. Mama Sondo. Honorable Masondo.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think most of the facts that are taken, but the only thing that I'm left with is the people with disabilities in these beneficiaries. That's how many disabled people that have benefited, because I was approached by other people that they said they have applied for the donations, but they didn't get donations. But I couldn't phone the CEO just to make a follow-up how many people they have got from the disabled people. So I think maybe others have covered me, but I can't repeat it. So I just want to know maybe.
Have you submitted, Honorable Masondo? Have you forwarded, when they were telling you, did you forward their documents so that we are sure?
Yes, I have their documents, Chairperson, but if maybe possibly I can forward it to you so that you can email it for the CEO. I have them.
Okay, Honorable, you can send to Nelly Sone so that Nelly, so that they can check also if ngempela ba applyile. You know, sometimes people can say they've applied when they did not forward the documents.
Yeah, because I even chairperson asked them to forward it to me. Then they said they have the project of making the belts. They said they are making the belts.
Okay.
So I'll make a follow up from them to forward it to Neliswa.
They must also give you the date and the proof that they did apply, so that when you send to Nelisa, you send with a detailed evidence that they did apply, so that they can also check if whether they meet the requirements or they don't meet the requirements.
Yes,
okay.
Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mam Sonti? Mam Sonti? Mam Sonti?
Sorry, Chair. Ma'am Sondi just sent me a message to say that she's having problem with connection. She's going to look for a proper spot. Yes. Thanks, Chair.
All right. Maluleka, Honorable Maluleka. This Joyce. Honorable Mkweba.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, honorable members. Let me welcome the presentation by the NYDA. And Chair, I've noted some activities by the NYDA. One, the training groups intense. Secondly, you know, the focusing on the business distress, on how to claim the COVID-19 relief grant. For example, Chair, last week, just last month, I then joined in an economic youth dialogue hosted by the Youth Parliament. And then I picked up some issues from one of the guest speakers about Fezile Dabi municipality in the Free State, that the youth or the young women in the area can't access our branch of the NYDA at Fezile Dabi. And I would then request to the CEO that he may follow up with one honorable member, Xola, that will then give him details of one of those guest speakers. But also, Chair, while I've noted the approved applicants for funding, the youth brigades, and also the data free, which is the cheaper and affordable data, which is that will help our youth in terms of online activities and job opportunities. My question, Chair, understanding the fact that there's also some reduction or some cuts to the budget of the NYDA, is that the NYDA, how does they make sure that the youth or the young women and persons with disabilities in rural areas benefit to some activities, understanding the difficulties in some rural areas, especially its vastness, and in some rural provinces. And also, Chair, I want to check also how to then assist these young people in terms of get access to claim the COVID-19 relief grant, because I understand I'm from a township in Ekurhuleni, that is part of Gauteng, and you will get complaints from many young people. It's either young women and a person with disabilities that they can't get access in terms of the COVID-19 relief grant. How to then assist them? And also for interest's sake, what will be the significant negative impact on the reduced budget or on the cuts on the budget of the NYDA, especially in rural areas? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mkweba. Neliswa. Neliswa. You must double check all the people that were shortlisted. I'm receiving a message here that some of them, they did not receive the consent form.
Okay, we'll do check.
Yeah, and I've sent you the message now.
Okay.
Check each one of them, phone each one of them. So that even the fingerprints, you must check each one of them, whether they have received even that one, that they must go to the police station so that you cannot leave anybody outside.
Will do, Chair. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Mkweba. Let's give the CFO and the CEO to respond. But also, if acting DG and Dr. Penis, you can also respond if they want you to. There are things that you want to add. Okay.
Thanks, Chair.
Oh. CEO, we can't hear you. Honorable Mkweba, mute your mic.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
My bad. I forgot to switch on my mic. Thank you very much to the honorable members for the questions. I want to start with Honorable Sharif's question, just in terms of so Honorable Sharif asks an important question in that these initiatives that we identified, what will they entail? At this stage, we've identified 6 sectors for youth service and public employment. These include placemaking, which is transformation of townships and informal settlements, greening, urban agriculture and the environment, social solidarity and care, ending gender-based violence, creative sector and sports, education, support, and early childhood development. Now, what we've taken into particular consideration is young women. So in areas like social solidarity and care, education, support, and early childhood development, and ending gender-based violence, it's areas which are directly targeted at young women in communities. So we know that a lot of work that young women do is unpaid in nature. Therefore, where young women can contribute to community activities and public employment in, for example, social solidarity and care, working in community homes, or through early childhood development centers, that work starts to become paid for young women, which means they are able to access work opportunities close to where they live, reducing travel times and transport costs, and they are able to be compensated, increasing their household income and thus increasing their agency. So those are the way we've designed public employment and youth services, specifically targeted at young women who we know are often marginalized and vulnerable. The second question Honorable Sharif asked is social behavior change for young people. So the one thing we did during the lockdown was a campaign called 3 million in 3 weeks, where we worked with other civil society organizations to reach 3 million young people, mainly to give them hope and give them confidence through what was a very distressing period, but also try and give them as accurate information as possible. We know that during this COVID period, one massive issue is fake news. I'm sure if comrades have been, or colleagues have been following social media today, you would have seen the 1.5 million grave sites in Gauteng, which has become a huge issue, you know. So fake news is playing a big problem in fueling misconceptions about COVID-19. But in addition, all of these programs, which we indicated in other government programs, shows the number of young people which are actively assisting government in spreading community awareness in public schools, public areas, to inform the public about accurate information and about the social behavior changes that are needed for us to make it through COVID-19. In terms of rape culture in high schools, I will have to come back on that one there. Our public employment and our youth service strategy is very much directed towards the public education system. And maybe perhaps, like we've put on there as one of the targets, is ending gender-based violence through youth service programs. Perhaps rape culture can also be one of the targeted areas which we can identify through youth service programs. In terms of increases for staff members, that is a matter that we will look to DPSA for guidance on, and we will also allow the bargaining processes to unfold. What we have done as an organization and communicated is that for management and upwards, they must sacrifice for this financial year. We must accept the pain, and that there will be no salary increases for management and above during the 2021 financial year. Indeed, we can certainly look at more technology partnerships, because I think these are critical in identifying jobs of the future. On hemp, there's actually been a lot of work done. So the cannabis plant is divided into two portions, as I understand it. The one being the hemp, and the other one being the marijuana. Now, what needs to be done is the hemp portion needs to be deregulated. So DTI has already given conditional approval for deregulation of the hemp portion, and this matter has served through the presidency, to which NYDA made contributions at Cabinet and at NEDLAC. What needs to happen now is the Ministry of Health needs to deregulate the hemp portion, not the marijuana portion just yet, because that still needs processes. But that if the hemp portion is deregulated, certainly there's so much benefits in the economy and for young people. And I fully welcome the committee's inputs, and this is certainly an issue that we will be following and implementing over the next few months, and we will keep giving you feedback on it. If I move to Honorable Maseko's questions on face-to-face training or learning. So the idea is that we are doing both online training and face-to-face training. Generally, our perception is that young people learn better in a face-to-face environment. However, if they don't feel safe to come into an NYDA branch, we can't expect them to come into an NYDA branch. And then we're doing online learning both through zero rating of services, which means we carry the burden of cost, but also through, we want to roll out a program where a young person can come and fetch a memory stick with the modules from our offices, and they can, at their own convenience, download those modules from a memory stick and be able to go through the training, and be able to call up our trainers if they need any guidance. All of our branches and service centers are now open except Umtata, which has multiple cases of COVID-19. What we do encourage, though, is young people to get in touch with us before they visit the branch, because it assists us in planning and ensuring that there are no long queues that kind of could increase the spread of COVID-19. So we want to be fully functional in nature. The 50% workforce, and that's another reason we kind of try and be clear about which employees are in the office on which days, and if they're not there, how you could potentially get in touch with them. In terms of the 1,000 Businesses campaign, we've to date approved 480 businesses and disbursed 12.2 million rand. We expect by the end of July to be on 750 businesses, and we expect by the 12th of August to have the final list of the 1,000 businesses approved and disbursed. In terms of CETA partnerships, so our approach to CETA partnerships has always been that we try and not go with a begging bowl to the CETAs to say, just give us money, yeah, or just apply for money and the NYDA is not bringing anything. So what we do is, even if we can't co-fund 50%, we try and bring some level of co-funding to a CETA partnership, whether it be 10% or 20%. So it's seen as a collaborative partnership. So the budget cut does impact on CETA partnerships. The other concern we had when we reduced that target slightly is the fact that
What's happened? CEO. CFO.
Chairperson, I think maybe it's a network issue. I think he's just trying to maybe reconnect. Oh, there he is now.
Okay.
Colleagues, can you hear me? All right. I'm not sure where I left off, but I'll just repeat the CETA one because that is where I was at.
The CETA.
So yeah, so we do put in budget when we budget for these CETA programs, kind of to be collaborative in nature. However, we were also concerned that the CETAs didn't get the skills development levy for 4 months, and that may impact on their ability to sign new partnerships. However, I am willing to go back and reconsider whether we can increase that CETA partnership target in line with Honorable Maseko's input to that.
He's Masiko. She's Masiko, not Maseko.
Masiko. Apologies, Chair.
Thank you,
Then
Chair.
in terms of the 5,000 on the jobs training, I think that point is very fair from Honorable Masiko. I think we can certainly include the online training in there and increase that number. If we think about beyond COVID-19, and I agree, this is a very important point to think about. And I mean, we've been thinking a lot about it at the NYDA, and I touched on it a little bit during the presentation. The truth is that we have structural unemployment in South Africa. So our education system and our low growth economy directly affects our unemployment numbers. And youth unemployment together with high data costs is the two main issues we need to solve in the immediate. Now, in our view, young people can't wait for the education system to change, nor can they wait for the economy to grow. There has to be something in the now that can assist them. And that is why the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, together working with the NYDA and other partners, is saying that we need a massive public employment strategy. Yeah? The initial numbers that we put in place for youth service and public employment were too small. I would think we said 250,000 over 5 years. That needs to climb to close to 1.5 million young people in order to have a massive impact in reducing unemployment. And that is the strategy I think we're looking at beyond COVID-19 to ensure that millions of young people are taken out of unemployment. But equally, when being taken out of unemployment, they are offering meaningful service and contribution to their community. In terms of our engagements with the Department of Telecommunications. So when we were working on the June 16th message for the President and the President, we said that we believe that the presidency needs to, amongst others, they have to speak about the high data costs for young people. And partially, we got the response from the Department of Telecommunications to say that ICASA is fast-tracking the rollout of spectrum, which is expected to have massive reductions in data costs. And that project is being overseen directly by the cabinet, and NYDA is also continuing to have inputs to that process. But equally, the rollout of spectrum has opportunities for young people who are in business and companies which will be rolling out broadband infrastructure, because those companies must then equally have targets to employ minimum amounts of young people. So that is really our partnership with the Department of Telecommunications. In terms of training for agriculture, we strongly believe in agriculture, Chairperson, and working with the Department of Agriculture, working with also local municipalities. This is a partnership which can exist at local level, provincial level, and national level. Because we can come in and provide the funding, local and provincial government can provide land parcels, the Department of Agriculture, both at national and provincial level, can provide training. And the numbers are so promising, Chairperson. Young people are so interested in agriculture. I mean, from where we used to give grants, which were about 3% of our grant program, that has multiplied 4 times. Now, the grants given for agriculture are close to 12 to 15%. And really, it's wonderful to see what's going on in the agriculture space. I think there's so many exciting initiatives that are going on there. In terms of graduates, we have a jobs database where we assist graduates in finding learnership opportunities, internship opportunities, as well as permanent employment. They can reach out to NYDA via any of the platforms, and we can load them onto the database and link them up with opportunities when they become available. I think Honorable Ngobo had a question regarding our participation on Nat Joins. I just want to share the slide again to just show these are all of the government programs which has accounted for what we could say is close to 50,000 young people that have come through the Nat Joins economic work stream, and that are supporting young people to find opportunities during the COVID crisis. I will certainly look into the Fezile Dabi issue and understand what the challenges might be there. In terms of young persons with disabilities, our target remains any program of NYDA must have a 7% set aside for young people living with disabilities. If there's any challenges with a person's application or challenges he may be having with service at NYDA, again, the committee members are welcome to bring that to my attention through the Secretariat, and I will gladly follow up on the issue. Chair, I do think I have responded to all of the questions. If there's anything else, I'm also happy to take any further questions.
You know, as you were presenting a CEO, I was thinking of honorable members, if you know the NYDA can prioritize 4 projects or programs which they are going to embark on, and which are going to create more economic opportunities for young people and more jobs for young people, but also and skills development. You know, when I think of agriculture deeper and deeper, where I'm sitting, honorable members, is that you know, there are many things that NYDA can do, especially because the CEO was also mentioning local spheres and provincial spheres and national spheres of government. I was also thinking that maybe, you know, if they can have prioritized four projects or programs that they are going to say, you know what, here we're going to do 1, 2, 3. And this is our target, so that at the end of the day, we are sure that, you know what, the issue of land and agriculture is taken serious, and our young people, they participate in that space. Because I think we are looking at, like you see what Honorable Sheriff have proposed now. You know, I think it's very important that honorable members, even in our constituencies, I think we need to encourage our young people to get involved in agriculture, in all forms of agriculture. Because if we don't, that means our young people will not participate in the space. We've missed the boat, I'm sure, but I think we still have time that we can still introduce our young people into this to agriculture. If all of us, in our constituencies, we can start as honorable members. I think we can do. It can benefit our young people, and we would have said as the members of the committee, at least with this one, we've delivered. We have served the young people of South Africa. Okay, those are the response, honorable members. Do you have follow-up questions?
Yes,
there's one question. There's one question of Honorable Sharif with regards to salary increase there.
Yes, Chair, the mini salary freeze.
Yeah, was it answered?
Not completely, Chairperson. I think the CFO needs to just take a bite at it, Chair.
Yeah, no, CFO, can you respond to that one?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think issue of salary increases, UCO tried to engage on it partly by actually stating that the salary increases we're talking about, not increasing, are more of management and executives. So not necessarily the rest of the staff members. Of course, with the rest of the staff members, they are unionized. You need to go and negotiate with labor and then put your points across and then get to an agreement. But obviously, with management and executives, that's where we said we actually are looking at doing the salary cuts.
Oh, okay. You have taken it. You have learned from the one PSCBC where, in fact, when they were dealing with the salaries of public servants, they do it like from top. They say we'll get 1% or 0%, and from the lower levels you'll get so much.
Correct, Chair. You are 100% correct. Obviously, as I say, with the management and the executive not being unionized, you are able to actually sit down and have a chat to them and be able to make understand. And I think one thing I think the members must just keep in mind, we are ensuring that there's no jobs that are lost. So obviously the narrative is, guys, you still have a job, and a lot of jobs have been lost out there. And obviously we're just saying, for now, since there is this situation, at least then let's not have the salary increase, because we are still looking at protecting jobs. I think that's very important in the entity itself.
Yeah, even with us as members of parliament, it happened like that. The executive didn't get the agreement, and it's only MPs who got it. No, it's fine. I think I've looked at all the questions that were raised by members.
Chairperson, the question on mental health facilities was not answered.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm looking at now. Can you respond to that one?
Yes, Chair. So to be honest, we don't have any clear program besides higher education to assist young people with mental health challenges. We've very much been focused on the economic side of activities for youth, but it's certainly something I can look into and see perhaps through youth service how we can start to set up psychological support groups for young people, especially, and I must agree with the Honorable Sharif, the mental toll and the mental trauma from COVID-19 and the effects of unemployment and poverty take a massive strain on our young people, and we need to do better interventions in the mental health space.
Yeah, I think even the Department of Women, Dr. Bernice is here. Dr. Bernice, I think you can also look at that as the department.
Yes, thanks, Honorable Chairperson and members. Indeed, we can also look at that. We have already started looking at the psychosocial impact of COVID-19 on young people. And we are partnering with the National Youth Development Agency and GIZ. Although the initiative is still at an infancy stage, next week on the 13th, we will be having a webinar where we are going to be having a discussion with young people, a dialogue with young people, in order to obtain their opinions to help us design a program that seeks to build their resilience and build their capabilities with regard to the social and psychological problems that they are experiencing. So, that is actually an area that we are definitely looking at. And then we hope that once we gather the, opinions of young people, we will be able to conceptualize and design a tangible program that seeks to respond to their psychosocial needs.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Benis. The other one is what? Acting DG, you want to say something?
Chair, thank you. I'll just speak very briefly. I think just the one point I wanted to make when, as the CEO was, and thanks to the CEO for the excellent presentation, the issue of the post-COVID economy. And, I think for me, it's very, very critical that, even as we design the economic recovery plan, one of the opportunities is to say that the economy that we build post-COVID, because we know that our economy is really suffering, and that's why, the economy is opening up. But the economy that we build post-COVID must be more inclusive. It must be more inclusive because if we are to be honest, if we look at the data on youth, if we look at the data on women, the inclusion of women in the economy, we have not done enough. So, I just wanted to underline that. And the issue there is also that as a country, we are not reaping what is called the youth dividend and the gender dividend. If we look at other countries, it says that even if, investing in women and youth is a moral imperative, but it's also a growth imperative. So if you leave behind 52% of the population, which is women, and if you leave behind, I know that the statistics South Africa was saying today that 60% of our population is below the age of 34, 60%. If you leave those sections of the population behind, how do you expect to have a growing economy? How do you expect to ever address inequality and grow the economy? So, that is a very critical thing that we must do. It shouldn't be business as usual. So I think the interventions that NYDA is embarking upon, especially the presidential programs, are very important. And then also we do welcome the inclusion of explicit gender and disability targets within the youth targets, the NYDA targets, because we and that shows some of the advantages, even though NYDA is not they're an independent entity, but it shows the advantages of working as women, youth, and persons with disability. Then quickly, psychosocial support, there's significant, a department like the Department of Social Development provides quite expansive psychosocial support. And, even they've been reporting in the social impact work stream, they have been doing that extensively in relation to different institutions and the citizenry, expanding the number of social workers. So, I think even Department of Basic Education have that capacity within schools. So, NYDA can also work with, those departments to ensure that young people, especially those who are not in institutions, are able to, benefit from that psychosocial support, because mental health is a very, very, it's always raised, especially by young women, and the CEO has spoken about the issue of universities. And then the final point I wanted to make is the issue that Member Sharif raised around you know, young women who stay in abusive situations for, you know, because of the financial burdens. So the issue of the economic inclusion of young women is very, very critical. And that also includes active interventions so that those who are on the social grants, for example, we know that in some provinces, you know, there's active working with those young women to assist them to get access to the economy, you know, so that they don't have to be dependent on social grants, which are very low in any case. And even with some of the shelters for victims and survivors are also doing active training. So we would urge NYDA to work on that. And we know that Pillar 5 of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide specifically is also around economic power. But thank you very much, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, and NYDA. Thank you.
I think the other group that must not be left behind is the artists. In terms of creativity and innovation, I think that's another group that is there's an outcry that they feel like they are not taken care of by our programs. You know, not only the Department of Women and Youth and Persons with Disabilities, but also by also other departments, and also I think CEO and acting DG.
Yes.
I think you need to look at our artists, ne? And see on how can we assist them in the programs that are there, and so that they are not left behind. They were crying about the COVID beneficiation stimulus package for COVID-19. That I think maybe the requirements or the regulations, the way they've crafted the requirements, part of them maybe they don't qualify or what. But I think it's important that you look at that and see how then can you, as you do advocacy, and do have a meeting with the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, and find a way on how do you assist them, you know. And that's what I wanted to raise, that it's important. They must not be left behind.
Thank you, Honourable Member. We will certainly, and that's also one of the sectors of the economy that has to be addressed through the economic impact work stream, you know, because, you know, artists is very, very critical. Honourable Member, Chair, my apologies. I also, the question around how to apply for the COVID grant, the special COVID grant. It is, the information is on the website, but I've just put in the, I just Googled it now, and okay. I've just put, there's a WhatsApp number, but if you actually just Google a special COVID grant, then you should get here. But I can also provide, there's a WhatsApp number and you select SASSA. But it also indicates all of the requirements, South African citizen and so on, unemployed, all of those issues, and what is required, ID, banking details and so on. So that information is available. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Acting DG. CEO, do you want to say something?
Chair, can I have one last bite, please, Chair, if I may?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm sorry to bring this up. I was going to bring it up when I first spoke, but it did slip my mind. But it's very important. Chairperson, I want to find out from the NYDA, do they assist young entrepreneurs that might be going through some difficulties in their business? So just to give you some context, Chairperson, I was contacted by a young woman entrepreneur. And what she does is she has a factory where they produce lotions and sanitizers and face wash and all those sort of natural eco cosmetic brands. And she came to me and she said that she's a young woman. She's about my age. We are peers. And she said that the men came to her factory and they intimidated her and they threatened her business, and they literally took jugs and filled the jugs up with sanitizer that she was making in her company. She obviously went to the police to open up the case, but then they threatened her life, and so she was very scared on what to do. So I just want to find out from the NYDA, can I send you her information, and then maybe the NYDA can intervene and assist her with keeping herself safe and her business safe. And I can guarantee you, Chairperson, she's not the only one who is intimidated, a young woman who's being intimidated by other people for their goods and services. So I just want to find out what we can do to assist her, because the only thing I could ask is to go to the police station and then keep a track of the investigation. But what else can we do to assist her?
I forgot that you should have also sent that to CGE.
I did, Chair. I did send it to the CGE as well. I just want to find out if the NYDA can assist in what way they can assist, Chairperson.
You gave them.
I speak to the CGE every day, Chairperson. I'm sending them things all the time.
No, you must. You must. Yeah, but also our Department of Women also, I think the acting DG is listening. Maybe what we need to do is to furnish them with the particulars of that young woman, so that
Yes.
also our Department of Women can assist that one.
Certainly.
Yeah, now let's give the Department of Women to assist her.
Okay, Chair, so can I just send the information to Nelisma, because I don't
Yes,
have Dr.
yes,
Annette's information.
yes, and send it to Department of Women. Yeah, so that at least they will follow up and then try to assist that young woman, and the NYDA must focus on the things that we have given them now. Yeah, no, we thank you very much, Honorable Sheriff. All members, they know if they are raising issues, we take them forward as the committee. There's nothing. We are a team here. We are members of Parliament. When we are in the committee, we are representing our citizens, our electorate, people who voted us to be members of Parliament. So it's very much important. So members, you can raise anything, you can forward. You know what is good, Honorable Sheriff, and Honorable Masondo, when you have such cases, when you just finish us with the information, it makes life very easy. Unlike people who will come and say, talk hearsays, they don't help us most of the time. But when there's evidence that we can work on, it's much better. Thank you very much, Acting DG, for that assistance. Mam Sonti, we are back. You can speak, Ma.
Okay. Thanks, Chairperson. I'm back. Yeah, I was struggling on a network the whole blessed day today, but I'm back. Yes, yeah. I've got only one question, Chair. I just want to know who is the person who is responsible for those people who are staying in the streets, who sleeping outside, more especially on this time of the season, because now they don't have this place to sleep, they don't have something to eat, and they are dying. Even yesterday in Pretoria, there are 4 street kids who died under the bridge, maybe because of this drought, I don't know. So I just want to know who is responsible for that.
Social development is responsible for it in all the provinces, but also social development in Gauteng. I know that the whole week this week they were busy somewhere in Swane. Mama, if you can also tell us the area so that we can also contact with that case. But social development is responsible for that.
All right, I will tell you, I will send to Neliswa the place exactly. I forget the place, but it's Pretoria, Tshwane.
Oh, it's only
right yesterday, yes.
Oh, okay, ma. Neliswa can work on that because Tina will send it to the national office of the provincial office direct, where a problem. Thank you, Ma.
All right, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, honorable members. We are all covered, honorable members.
Yes, Chair, we are
Yes,
covered.
Chair.
Oh, singayivala umhlangano siqedile.
Singawuvala, Chairperson.
Ngoba
Thank you
nakusasa
very much.
kunomunye umhlangano.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, honorable members. Thank you very much, on acting DG, CEO and CFO, and Dr. Penis. Thank you very much for your attendance, and you were very helpful for our meeting. Thank CFO and CEO. You must work hard there, ne? You must not disappoint us. Yeah, we're looking forward to everything that you are doing. We'll support you. I'm looking forward to see you introducing young people in agriculture. Abamamsonti bayazithanda zonke lezi agriculture.
Mining sector.
Yeah, yeah.
Mining sector, Chair.
Nani?
Mining sector.
Yeah, that's in the mining sector. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.